Sexual honesty for the family and for the male human beings. Sexual honesty for the family and the male human beings. Number one, I want to warn you. If you are a person who is sitting in, or who has been raised in, or who has accepted conventional Christianity and how things are presented, the things that I have to say may be unusual, offensive, strange to you. Because the points that I make and that I will repeat over and over again are not points that your favorite teachers and apostles and pastors bring to the table. I will be speaking about things that will be a part of a new wave of peace and wholeness for families that has been long overdue and that is starting in 1,000 places at once. These things that I'm saying to you are generally unusual, but they are specifically being understood and grasped by thousands in various places, but not advertised broadly. And in days to come, these things will be advertised broadly. Your decision is whether to stand with these things and in these things that are a part of Yahweh Elohim, the Spirit who knows all, or whether you will just rather remain in the comfortable dog and pony show and the nice little comfy gatherings where a few things that are special and spiritual and supernatural go on. So, sexual honesty in the family and for the men. This is not for children. Not for children. This is for thinking peoples in order to gently make presentations of life for children in the days to come. This is not for children, but this is considering the children, because I was dangerously abused in my youth. And the abuse came from the parents, the elders, the teachers, who were not courageous enough and were not insightful enough to think about and talk about the issues, the problems, and the downsides of the human character and how problems come up. We need to deal with the problems of greed and competition and rivalry and pride and bitterness towards others and a desire to take revenge and small-mindedness. There are many things, many problems that we need to focus on. But the problem of our desire, our arousal, and the sweet connection of man and woman that fit together like a puzzle in a delightful embrace. This thing is hidden in plain sight. This reality is so big, but through all the seasons of my life in Christianity, it has been largely ignored in the public sector. I am putting an end to that, so you may be uncomfortable with me. Here's the bottom line. I spent time observing children. There's a 6 or 7-year-old girl who loves to watch videos of children being born. She loves to watch the water births and the home births and the hospital births. This girl has seen so many babies come out of mommy's bodies. She's only 7 years old. Now, one might say, oh, that's the problem of the mother who isn't da 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 da, etc., etc. No. This is fascinating stuff. This is amazing stuff. This is heart-touching stuff. This little girl, I'm not saying that having an obsession with watching babies be born on videos is an especially positive or necessary thing, but I'm trying to point out to you what the real atmosphere that we live in is. Same thing with breastfeeding. I know a person who is basically a child who is really fascinated with the idea of having a chance to feed a baby with the body. And she has studied latching on, how if you tip the nipple upwards so that the baby's mouth, the roof of the mouth, the nipple hits the roof of the mouth, you will get a good latch on and the baby's sucking action will be good, efficient. That's interesting. That's just plain interesting. That's as interesting as learning how to plant a seed in the ground and put fertilizer on it and water it. It's just a simple, visible process. If we Christians are aware that there is an extremely active spirit realm, and there are spirits just trying to get license, sneaky license, over difficult things, shameful things, fearful things, if we know that, especially if we immerse in Messiah and in Messiah's teachings, if we know that there's going to be more negative spirit attack on us, if we cannot talk about the simple temporal things of the family and the physiology in a way that's fun and pleasant and positive, full of celebration and fascination, just as if we were going to a zoo to look at animals and talk about their different functions and abilities, so also the human animal is partly our responsibility for stewardship. And I tell you the truth, my human physiology and my family physiology was very poorly stewarded. It was not described, it was not talked about, it was not presented as a simple set of situations that are describable and good and nice and wonderful. So, if it is true to say that the children around us can go clickety-click on Google and, in their curiosity, Google big penis, little penis, or excited vulva, excited vagina, if they can actually satisfy those articles of curiosity, then the ones who are responsible for those children should have a great, cheerful, clear, wide open communication atmosphere set up so that any questions, any issues, any discoveries that the children have can be just talked about. If you present the atmosphere, and if you vigilantly maintain the atmosphere of the family and the physiology, especially the male physiology, which is the most secret part of the sexual physiology. The woman's body is like public domain. You sit at the breakfast table and you talk about lactation and dilation and ovulation and all that stuff. The woman's body is talked about because of the baby, the child, and the simple mechanical functions that the whole family needs to be concerned about. But the most secret part of the whole human anatomy is the man unit, the penis that gets big. It's really cool because it's very small and it gets very big, and then it releases a fountain of babies. There's a river of children, a river of blood, a river of life, an amazing, inspiring, beautiful flow that's supposed to be caught by the womb of the woman, ideally. But that is the most secret part of the whole human anatomy. And if we are enlightened and if we are aware of how much battle is going on in the spirit realm, then we must go directly towards communicating about that atmosphere. Now, here's the cool thing. God is a real person who knows every human character. We are little gods. We have weaknesses and strengths. We have timidities. We're afraid to go through certain doors, but we run through other doors. God knows who we are. He knows the timing in our lives. He knows our needs and our fears and resistances. When God crashed in on me and revealed to me that He is real, Yahweh Elohim, the God that messed around with Israel, the God that has been touching and making predictions about Jesus in all cultures, not just the Hebrew culture. Study the Sibylline prophecies. Study the Sibylline prophecies. That's a proof. Elderly Greek prophetesses, way outside of the Hebrew atmosphere, are receiving all these details that are perfect descriptions of Jesus of Nazareth. Wild stuff. Way, way, way ancient times. Sibylline prophecy. So don't think that the predictions about Jesus are only in the Hebrew writings. They're in many writings. So, shine a spotlight on the male physiology and start learning how to talk gently like Mr. Rogers, with a joy and a delight. Hi, do you have a penis? I have one. It's really great. It's really the most interesting part of my body, even though it's kept hidden. It's usually very small, but sometimes, even when I'm not thinking about it, it gets very big. And the wonderful thing is, the design, the intelligent design, the beautiful artwork of the human physiology is one flesh. Man and woman is actually one physical unit that has two parts. And they meet together. They fit like a puzzle together. And when they fit together, a brand new human being can come out. So, I have a penis, and I've had it for a really long time. But in my life, I didn't know about what we call arousal or getting excited. I didn't know. I wasn't told in a fun, happy way about how nice it is to have your own person to enjoy and fit together with. But that Jesus actually had a body that could fit together with a woman, but He chose not to do that because The whole human family has been invaded by dark spirits. And he decided that he was going to rather spend all of his time focusing on the needs of everybody rather than his own needs and his own comfort, even the comfort of having a woman. As you begin to invite a child to be ready, as you begin to invite a girl to be able to say, "Thank you, God, my body feels really good, even though I don't have a marriage bed." I can picture how wonderful that would be, because my body feels so excited and ready to be enjoyed by a man person. But I don't do that without the safety of covenant, because I know bad spirits can come in and create obsession. So if I have a measure of excitement, I always whisper, "Thank you, God, for this body. Help keep me self-controlled and at peace, and helping the human family. And if it is my time to have my own person, please reveal it to me and reveal it to the other people in my communion group, so that it don't put off having the marriage that is needed, because it is written, because there are so many sex problems, each one should have their own to go to enjoy when they have a desire to share their arousal and be naked and not ashamed." Naked and not ashamed passage is Genesis 2:25. We were designed naked and not ashamed. So there's something deep in our characters that causes us to desire to be naked and not ashamed with somebody. So don't be surprised if there's a person who's a little bit out of control that wants to get near you and wants to get naked with you. Don't be surprised. Just be ready with a happy, kind answer. "Oh, no, thank you. I'd prefer to do that only if there's a covenant, a permanent life covenant, because that is what keeps the problem spirits out." There are plenty of problems in marriage and when you do get married, but I don't want to risk the problems of unclean spirit affliction and attacks and things by just being casual about the treasure of who I belong to. Who I belong to is a treasure in this life, and that's just a simple thing that I'm going to work on and have an understanding about as I go forward. These are the ways to communicate with all of us. But then, here's what happened to me. Before God crashed in on me, He gave me a friend who I was having intimate sexual experiences with, that I was not married to. And in that, I learned, in that relationship, I was studying some simple books about self-control in male human beings and female human beings. And I learned how to be much more self-controlled when arousal is happening. And that caused my relationship with the woman to be much more beautiful and interesting and calm and exciting. And the words that the thing that we agreed on is that what was happening was so beautiful and so intense that it really should not continue if we are not married, because there was a wholeness and a closeness that both of us were experiencing for the first time, and it kind of shocked us. We shouldn't be doing this if we're not married. and this was before I even had conscience about such things. I was given a training in closeness with a woman, and first a training in self-control for me personally. And then, after God revealed himself to me through the predictions, the messianic prophecy, there is no other human being in all human history who has had hundreds of predictions scattered across the writings of about 40 people across 1,000 years that all came true in one person. The racetrack odds against all that coming true is immense. It's enormous. So this awareness that the Dead Sea Scrolls proves the Hebrew Scriptures have never been changed, the Koine Greek New Testament is an amazing little document that was duplicated and sent to every culture on the planet before there was a printing press. It is the most duplicated book before the printing press in all human history. So this empirical, simple description, this literary library description that was given to me became the turning point, where I had to go into Christianity, which I hated, and figure out what I'm going to be doing and how I'm going to figure out how this stuff is supposed to run, because I grew up in Christianity and it didn't work. It was messed up. There was something really, really wrong. There was something fake. There was something missing. There was something fake. There was something missing. There was something strange going on. So I'm trying to give this point that when God crashed in on me, I had first literally been given a training in male physical sexual self-control and just the depth of closeness between a man and a woman in the sexual intercourse that I had never experienced before. I mean, it would brought tears to my eyes. It was so intense just because of the self-control training. It was so easy to sit in and enjoy the motion and the being together and the breathing together. And it was could last for hours, for long periods of time. Wave orgasm experiences were very, very interesting. So that came first in my life. Then the proofs that Jesus is God and these writings have been supernaturally preserved. And then as I'm reading, I discover that in the former covenant, there's all of these sins and sins that need to be atoned for by specific things. Like if you do a certain thing, you need to bring a sin offering. You need to bring 2 little animals or this thing or a grain offering or something when you sin. Then in Leviticus 15, there is an instruction from the highest spirit for this community. And this instruction causes the family to talk honestly about the blood, the physical physiology, the flow from the woman, the flow from the man, and any kind of problems with a person who is sick. The family is literally commanded, is given good instruction to take notice about the blood of the family. And in this instruction, many people look at it as merely quarantine laws that prevent sexually transmittable diseases. But if you really sit down and look at what's going on here, in an ordinary, busy, happy family life, the male human beings are told to let the family know, and also the Jewish community is the Israelite community is a closed community. They are not even eating with other cultures. They're a closed community following a set of laws and rules that are actually quite unusual compared to the laws and rules of the people groups around them. So they are a set apart, a separate society. And in this separate society, the male human beings are told to announce to their fellow community, the family, the workplace, whatever, that they are untouchable until the next sundown, each time they've released their seed. Now, one small-minded person would say, oh, well, that's in the past, and that was just to prevent sexually transmittable diseases. But I tell you the truth. If you think and look deeper, if you consider the demonic powers in the spirit realm, and how secrets happen and how things get hidden, if the male human beings admit whatever times the seed is released from their body, then the whole family has compassion. If there is a positive description of what it's like to be a male human being, and that this really neat penis that you have, from time to time, even if you have no lust or fantasy in your mind, if you've felt the practice of the arousal of the penis and the release of the seed, sometimes that's a thing that you just do because it feels so interesting and pleasant, like taking 3 big scoops of strawberry ice cream and eating it all. Like if you have a cabin on a mountainside, you walk out of the cabin, you go around the corner, and you have this beautiful view. It's literally a natural feeling and experience. And it's a thing that even if the most self-controlled man is aware that he would prefer not to release his seed, having a measure of arousal and expressing some thankfulness towards God keeps you in peace. Now, there are plenty of people who will basically set up a rule and put in this do not taste, do not touch, and the concept of a man releasing his seed ever outside of a woman is sin with a capital S. But then if you look at the way people talk, sometimes when a person reacts to a situation, they react with so much anger that that's a sin. It might not be a major sin, but they could have done it a little bit better. So our lives are filled with measures of a lack of perfection. In the Garden of Eden, we should meditate on the Garden of Eden. In the Garden of Eden, which is a real atmosphere that was cut off, that was changed, there would have been no bloody menses. No mammals have bloody menses, only female human beings. Do your research. Bloody menses are not common in mammal human beings at all. And also, ejaculations outside of the vagina are not common in mammals. In all mammals, the seed is released inside the snugly perfect place of the woman. In all mammals. So one could say, well, in the Garden of Eden, no man would ever release his seed except for in a woman. And that's probably or possibly true. But then you can say, well, what about the fact that we're the stewards of the whole earth, and we're even the stewards of our bodies, and we might even observe and practice and see and look and be curious about these functions. So it's very important to bring these hidden things that aren't talked about to the table. But here's the heaviest point that I'm going to leave you with. This is a long recording. I'm sorry it's so long. Here's a heavy point that I'm going to leave you with. When I read in Leviticus 15 that the men are responsible to say something anytime that they've released their seed, instantly I became aware that if, when I was married, I had been married for about 6 or 8 years, I had this instant thought: if I had told my wife anytime I had released my seed that she wasn't there, so that she could give me a hug, so that I could say to her, hey, some of our collective life came out, so give me a hug and snuggle me and pray over me, because we spilled a little bit of our life, but our life is overflowing out of me. It's just flowing out. But literally caring enough about the blood to let your wife know, at least let your wife know. In that one moment, I was like, wow. If somebody had given me a rule to always let my wife know if I released my seed and she wasn't there, I know that we would still be married. I know it. Because the secret releasing of the seed becomes a sad, scary, lonely, separate, hidden thing for the male human being. And I tell you the truth, in these times of difficulty, and especially in the difficulty of living in the freedom of religion zone, where spirits are trying to sneak in and get around, it's almost like they're trying to get a crowbar in any crack in the window. If a male human being has to be ashamed and secret about the fact that sometimes just enjoying his penis a little bit ends up with a flow of seed, if that's something that the whole family actually carries together as a simple reality, okay, hey you guys, my baby's flowed this afternoon, today, last night. That gives the whole family the ability to be compassionate. It gives children the ability to ask the dumb, funny, cute little questions that can easily be answered. And I tell you the truth, honesty, regular honesty times, before prayer, before worship, before nice teaching times, and before communion, as the Holy of Holies in a closed setting in the family. Honesty times and truth about male and female physiology, and checking in about arousal or mental obsessions in the sexual atmosphere. These things must be in place. These things are going to be common in my home and in my life and in my lifestyle. And I expect these things to be things that cause many people to just run away. Plenty of people slander me, call me sex obsessed, or, you're bringing back the former covenant, or, you're making more rules, or da-da-da-da-da. When in fact, God, through me, is bringing in the sweet little practices that actually help us stay safer and more refreshed and more whole and more together as a family. None of this stuff is new. The woman being enjoyed by the man and the man being enjoyed by the woman is a wonderful, delightful thing that is not a secret. And if it is, the more that is kept a secret, the more the human soul will end up being led and trained by unenlightened souls that are under the power of actual demons and unclean spirits and dark forces. So, honesty in the family and in the male physiology is one of our simple goals. Putting it on the table, establishing it. If the men are not willing to be honest about their spunk in a noble, reasonable way, and if their honesty, if women are not willing to receive that honesty, then you're going to have to go somewhere else other than my territory, because it is a good and healthy and reasonable thing to speak of this pleasant function that is not ugly, that is not gross, that is not sin per se, unless it's coupled with an attack, a fantasy, or something that the man could actually say, you know, hey, I know I was under some kind of lust spirit. You can pray about that. Do all things as unto God. Thank you, God, for my body. It's so fascinating. Help me to stay at peace and self-controlled as much as possible. And friend, peace be with you. Think about these things and be courageous. Consider the daddy list. The daddy list is just a list, a name that I've made of making up a list of ways that human beings do dumb things, talking about the downsides of human beings, so we can check in with one another and see how we're doing on certain issues. The daddy list is repeated in my home at least once a month, maybe every couple weeks, just as a reminder. And it could be done once a week when we get together, because it is really the best set of vigilant concerns that children should be cognizant of, that children should be aware of, children should be able to communicate about. Mama, Papa, I did something that was not humble. It was selfish, it was prideful. That kind of stuff. Okay, Shalom Aleichem. Peace be with you. I hope this is a help. This is a beginning. Stand up. Carry the sword of this truth. If you feel motivated to, contact me. Subscribe, like, share, subscribe, and like. Courageously share. Courageously share, because these things are what are going to preserve and help these kids who can actually just sit there on the web and look at sexual intercourse. They can look at mamas giving birth. They can look at all of the human functions. And so we should be far ahead of cheerfully describing, like Mr. Rogers, all those simple things that are just really neat and wonderful and just a part of life. So, it's a beautiful day in the honesty house. A beautiful day in the honesty house. Would you be honest? Could you be honest? All the best.